Lesson 24. Death, Grief, and Friendship. In the month of August 2018, a great friend of mine, Cynthia, lost her sister to a terminal disease. My biological mother had also passed on in April of the same year from cancer. When Cynthia and I met, she was going through a positive and reclaiming transition. She had quit smoking, she was exercising a lot, building fruitful spiritual and personal relationships. Cynthia was in a good and enlightened space, a space she was personally proud of. She truly deserved credit for all the changes she made and was making in her life. Cynthia and I met through a mutual friend, Lynn. We all had little or no family or relatives where we lived at the time, so we adopted each other as friends, sisters, and family. We loved and supported one another in every way we knew how to. Cynthia's sister had died after a long battle with cancer. We had prayed, through much faith and perseverance. We all hoped for a miracle, because this was the second sister she would lose in the time period of 1 year. When her sister finally died, Cynthia lost faith. She lost hope. She lost the zeal for life and living. She spun in a downward spiral so quick it terrified me. She took time off work to grieve, but soon days became weeks and weeks were rolling into months. She began smoking and drinking so heavily and threw basic hygiene into the wind. Her life was disappearing right before all of our eyes. It was frightening. We knew and understood she was hurting, but beyond the pain, she was losing her own identity in this dark crisis. We were afraid to offend or hurt her even more. Lynn and I were unsure of what comforting or encouraging words to speak. We lived in fear of saying the wrong thing that might cause her to take worse actions. We both offered to bring homemade meals and spend time with her whenever she allowed. Our friend had become a shadow of herself. Cynthia agreed to visit Lynn and I, and on this particular day, nothing seemed right. She had not paid a morsel of attention to her personal hygiene for days. That evening, I walked into the kitchen to talk with Lynn, who was making dinner for the trio. I clearly stated my stance. I decided I would no longer watch or avoid the whole situation with Cynthia anymore. I was afraid we would lose our friend to this new yet destructive lifestyle. I walked into the bedroom where Cynthia laid to have a rather hard but necessary conversation. A conversation that was true, honest, and urgently needed. It was a focused conversation about my concerns for her well-being, which, however, might have caused the friendship to end. She yelled at me. She cried and wanted to be left alone to allow in all the grief which clutched unto her. As I ended my part of the conversation, I said I suffered a loss this year, and you have suffered a loss too. Lynn lost her mom at the age of 16. We all have one thing in common, and as we continue to live and grow older, we will lose loved ones. At some point, we will also die. This is an inevitable end. Death is a constant we may dislike, but must learn to make peace with. As I walked out of the room, I said to Cynthia, "I'll leave you alone and never have this conversation with you again." She buried her face in the pillow and wept bitterly. It saddened my heart to see my friend in this state of despair. About 20 minutes later, Cynthia joined us at the kitchen table requesting for a ride home. She also requested for a ride in 1 hour. It was a ride to return to her job that evening. Lynn and I picked up our cleaned-up, fresh, and delightful friend. With that little push of honesty in the light of friendship, she was ready to face life again. We sang along with the radio as we drove. Reaching her office, we all stepped out of the vehicle. Right there and then, we shared a big, quiet hug, smiled, and cried together, all at the same time. Sometimes we need to do the right but hard things with and for those we truly care about. even at the risk of losing the relationship.